How well does Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection play on the Steam Deck? Keep watching to find out how performance holds up and what settings you should and shouldn't use. Okay, I'll start this with some good news and then get into the bad news. Both Battlefront and Battlefront 2 in Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection run nearly perfectly on the Steam Deck. I did end up locking the frame rate to 60, as even though I could hit 120 frames per second quite comfortably, when there's a lot on screen the frame counter drops into the 80s or 90s. On the Steam Deck OLED model, you could get away with sticking to a 90Hz refresh rate if you want. The frame drops haven't been so bad that 90Hz is off limits, but I'm a fan of saving as much battery life as possible, and running the game at 60Hz is going to do that. Admittedly, both Battlefront games shouldn't be difficult to run on modern hardware. Both were released for PS2 and the original Xbox, so they're not exactly high-end software. Shall we get into the bad? There are some really bizarre choices here. The Steam Deck has its own control menu in Battlefront 2, which is pretty cool, but you need to manually map things like the ability to switch between first and third person to a button that's already in use for something else. I also couldn't find a way to invert the spaceship controls in-game, which is really annoying. There's also the issue there isn't really much here. The games look the best they ever have, but this is a very bare-bones port with no in-game settings to tweak. I'd also add the first Battlefront looks just slightly better than an emulated version, and it's aged horribly. Given the developer Asper worked on Tomb Raider Remastered and went in and added a ton of new textures and lighting, Battlefront feels almost rushed by comparison. I have also seen many reports about people struggling to get into online matches. From my own experience and my own testing, this hasn't really been an issue though, and I'd put this down to launch issues rather than a fixed problem that's going to affect everyone. If you've seen any of my settings videos before, normally this is where I'd list all the settings to change to get the best performance. As the Star Wars Battlefront collection doesn't really have any graphical settings, I can't do that. There are, however, some settings I would suggest changing to make the experience a little more intuitive. Firstly, go and change the camera setting in Battlefront 2. In the first game, the right stick moves as you'd expect, but in Battlefront 2, it's horrifyingly slow. It's so slow in fact that trying to shoot anything is a lot harder than it should be. While you're there, I'd also suggest mapping one of the buttons to switch between first and third person view. In Battlefront 1, you can click in the left stick, in Battlefront 2, you have to manually map it yourself. You could make do without doing this, but being able to switch also means you can see around corners without needing to go into the settings menu each time to switch to and fro. Over in the Steam Deck Quick Access menu, I'd also recommend dropping the TDP down to 10 or 12. These aren't power hungry games, so the full 15 watts is definitely not needed. I am having fun playing Battlefront 2 on the Steam Deck, and when the 64 multiplayer works, it is a real joy. But, you knew that was coming, I'm left with a big old feeling of, is that it? While character models still look great to my retro eyes, the textures in the first Battlefront have aged terribly, to the point where it's just an eyesore to play. I'd wager most are here for Battlefront 2 with online play, but at $30, that's a lot for a little package. In a sale, I could easily recommend picking this game up, but at full price, and given how little has changed from the original versions, it's hard to make the case for Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection just yet. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like, and if you'd like to subscribe, that would be awesome. Until next time, see ya!